Okay, so we're going to resume. One quick note just before we start. Somebody had a question because it will be around the time if you install JetBrains, if you installed WebStorm around the beginning of the course, your trial will be up soon. So how do you extend your trial? You go to the JetBrains website, which is the maker of WebStorm. And from here, you click the account link in the nav bar. So just click on the account icon. And it will take you here. So register with your student email. It'll send you a verification link and ask you to fill out a form. Make sure you put in your student email, not your personal email. Click the verification link in your email, complete the form. That will set up your account. And then in the IDE itself, if you go to help and register, one of the options is your JetBrains account. So then you just put in your same credential that you set up on the website, set it up here and click activate, and it will extend your trial. Believe it's a renewable 365-day trial, so long as you have a student account. Jill, did you try that? Did it work? Okay, good. So, does it now say your trial is good until next year sometime? Great. Excellent. Okay, so we've built our public site with Node where we can add, we can edit, we can delete. But right now there's no security. Anybody who comes here, if we've published this to deploy this to Heroku, it's automatically deployed through Git. So if I go to my live site, actually, I think I took my password out, so it will probably crash for now. But everything's public. So we want to look at implementing authentication. And there's a common middleware called Passport. This is the most commonly used mechanism for authentication in a Node application. I know a number of you are planning on using Node in our Monday class as well. So if you are, you're definitely going to need Passport for that project. So Passport works with MVC, and it allows both a local, so what Passport has are different authentication methods, and it uses the term strategies. So the idea of a local strategy, we're going to implement that first. That basically means we're authenticating users in our own database, in MongoDB. So locally within our application. It also supports a variety of OAuth strategies. So if we want to enable social sign-in, things like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, there are libraries, Passport libraries for each of those. And we'll maybe look at using some of those after reading week. So Passport is an NPM package, so we'll need a few packages. I think there's going to be 4 that we need. We'll need the main Passport package. We'll need Passport local so that we can store the users in our MongoDB. We're going to need a Passport Passport package that works with Mongoose, because Mongoose isn't the only way we can connect to the database, but that's the way we're choosing to. And then we also will need a separate package that'll be used for managing sessions, because we'll want to be able to store user identity in a session object, and we don't have that right now in our existing scaffolded application. Later on, we'll add other packages for things like Google or Facebook login. So we'll install Passport. So we'll have to do some configuration in app.js. So we'll have to initialize it. We'll have to say we want to use sessions to manage the users. And then the other thing, we'll need a couple of methods here that look similar to this. We have this serialize and deserialize user. Serialize user basically means once we've identified the user, serialize them means store them in a session variable. Deserialize means read the information out of the session. So this is writing to the session and reading from the session. So we'll need similar code to this in our app.js. There's some extra code here. We don't really need this. This is kind of older extra stuff, but the first, I'd say, first few 8 slides of this, which I've linked here on Blackboard, these slides here are basically what we're going to do. A couple other resources I'm just going to point out around using Passport that may be helpful for you. So even though this is old, Michael Herman is the original developer of Passport. So this was his own tutorial, even though it is 5 years old and the versions have been updated. The basics of the tutorial are here. So he explains step by step how to install everything, even from setting up a brand new project and what code would need to go where in order to do this. Some of this stuff, like I said, has been stripped down a little bit and streamlined. So we'll be able to do this with a little less code than what's here, but this is an excellent reference for you. And then there's also, he also did a YouTube tutorial where he's doing a walkthrough. So these are in the lesson 7 folder for your reference. So here are the packages we're going to want to install: Passport, Passport Local Mongoose, and Express Session. So we can install these either with 4 separate commands, or we can actually install them together in a single command, which is what I'm going to do. So I'll just stop my server to free up my terminal. So if we want to install multiple packages, you can just put spaces between the names. So we want Passport, Passport-local, Passport-local-mongoose, and Express Session. These names are all also on Blackboard in the lesson 7 folder. If you're having trouble seeing them, you can copy and paste the names from Blackboard. We're not installing these globally because we want them to be specific to this application. So I'll just run all of those. I've also got this little warning here about some low severity vulnerabilities, and NPM is prompting me to run the command npm audit fix. So typically that means some dependencies in here may have outdated dependencies where there were known vulnerabilities, and there may be newer versions of those sub-dependencies. So I'll run this command. Sometimes it fixes these things and sometimes it doesn't. So I'll run npm audit fix to see if this message here about these 2 found vulnerabilities goes away. Okay, so it didn't work. It said we'd have to review them manually. Sometimes the audit fix works. Sometimes it doesn't. I will leave that for now. If audit fix was a quick fix that may have worked, was worth a try. So now I'll start the server back up. And we can start to configure Passport. So most of what we're going to need to do here is in app.js. And we're basically going to follow most of what's here. So most of the code we need is on slide 8. And I've linked these here. This says week 8, lesson 8. I know I got my weeks wrong. Well, this course runs under another course code as well, and in that course there's a midterm. So they did this lesson after the midterm. You guys were lucky enough you got a short quiz instead of a midterm. So I'm going to close everything except my app.js. And maybe down here after our, actually maybe we'll configure it over here. So we want to add in here 3 of the 4 NPM packages we installed. So we're going to install Passport. Actually, I think we only need 2 of them here, sorry. And we need the Express Session package so that we configure Express to use the session object for managing users. So we'll make the references up here. The actual Passport configuration has to happen after this line. We've got to create the Express app first before we can configure it to use Passport. So I'll maybe put it down here after our database connection. The first thing we're going to do is set up session management. So we have to provide a secret key, which is used so that it actually hashes the session variables. They're not stored in plain text on the server. So it'll just be any random string, 2020. Put in anything you like, any string. We're going to set the resave property to true. This just means every time a new request is made, we want to refresh the value in the session variable, so it won't time out. And the last property we're going to set is this save uninitialized. We'll set that to false, meaning if somebody comes as an anonymous user to the site, we don't need to create a session for them. We only need to create a session once somebody registers or logs in. If they're anonymous, there's no need to add the overhead of creating the session variable. We only need it for authenticated users. So that's our first step in setting up Passport. We're telling our Express application to use Passport, and we're calling the initialize method. So if we don't invoke this line, Passport will never work. And then we also have to call the session method. So we've got 4 steps. We've done 2 of them. If we run the application right now, we shouldn't see anything change. I'll just check in node mode, it hasn't broken. That's good. And I'll check that it actually still loads. Which it seems to. Now, before we can do our last 2 steps, we're going to need to create a new model. And this model has got to be used to manage the users or the accounts. And then we're going to have to tell Passport which model in the project is going to take care of the users. Because right now we only have countries and food. Neither one of those is really going to be useful for handling registration and login. So we need a new model class to do that. So I'm going to leave this file for a minute because I want to go and create that model that we're going to need. And it's going to be similar to our other models with one exception. So I'll go to my project. And in the models, I'm going to create a new JavaScript file, and I'll call it user. Because it's a model, I want it to be singular. So I'm following the naming conventions we usually use. So this is going to look almost identical to the country model. We're going to need Mongoose. We're going to create a schema, and we're going to make it public, and we'll define what a user looks like. So what properties should we have in our user schema? What do we need to know about a user? Okay. So to keep it very simple, maybe first we'll just have username, which we can require as an email address. Actually, I guess we should set it up this way. So we'll set up two properties, username and password. We'll need to make it public. We're going to export it. So we'll give it a public name of user with a capital U. So far this looks pretty much just like the other models we've created. So the challenge here, one extra thing we're going to need to add to this isn't an ordinary model. It's not like food or country. This is going to be used by Passport for creating and authenticating users. So that's what this last package was for. This Passport local Mongoose. We've installed it, but we haven't used it yet. So we're going to require it here. Just give it a short form. So what we want to do is we need to use this package, implement it in here so Passport knows, oh, okay, I see three model classes, but the user model is the one that we're implementing for account management. So we'll call Mongoose has a method called plugin. basically means extend the functionality of this model. So we want to plug in so we're basically making this schema. In this line, we're saying this is not a regular model anymore. This is used for passport local authentication. And by doing this, Passport will automatically do things like, for example, hashing of passwords. We don't have to manually do it. Because Passport local Mongoose says, okay, this class, this is a special class. It's not a regular one. All our users register, log in, log out. That's all handled through here. So Passport local Mongoose will do a lot of those regular security tasks. So this is used to extend this model functionality Passport. So line 2 and line 17, these are our extra lines that we don't see in the country or the food model. So this is set up as a special class. We now need to do some configuration in the app.js. We need to tell Passport, hey, when someone tries to register or log in, this is the class, this is the model that will be used. So now we can go back to app.js because we need to reference this file. We want to link Passport to the user model. This could be var or whatever. Sorry. And because our user model is a special class, using Passport local Mongoose, it has this create strategy method. So by default, that's going to use our local strategy, our local database. And then we need to make sure that Passport can read and write the users to and from the session. So as the user makes different requests and moves around the site, we can constantly identify who they are. Again, there's no serialize user method in here, but because our model extends Passport local Mongoose, those methods we're calling are inside of this package. So we don't have to write them in our code, they're included in the dependency. So we're going to call serialize, oops. Probably should be consistent. So deserialize is read the user from the session, serialize, write information to the session. We may need to configure one more thing. Let's see if it's running. Okay. Whoops, Mongoose not defined. Yeah, it's a capital M. Thank you. So I called Mongoose lowercase m here. Should be lowercase m there. Thank you. Okay, so my app is running now. We shouldn't see any changes. So now we want to try to set up the user registration. So we've got these register and login links in our nav bar. Right now, they don't go anywhere. So again, here's the code. Starting from line 53 down to the bottom, this is everything we've added to app.js. To save us time, rather than us building the register and login views, I've put the code for those on Blackboard. So once you have this code, if you go back to your lesson 7 folder, I've put all the HTML for register.hbs and login.hbs on Blackboard. So you can just create those two files as empty files, and then you can copy and paste the HTML from Blackboard into them. We don't really need to spend class time creating HTML forms at this point. So we'll make those files right in the root of views. So in views, you can just make register and login. Give them HBS extensions. And you can grab the HTML. Oops, I think I'm missing a closing field set tag at the bottom of the register. So the code for login is almost identical. There's no confirm box. And each page has a link to the other one on the bottom as well. So just copy and paste the HTML. And then we can enable the register and login links on our nav bar. Right now, when you click those, they don't go anywhere. So in our layout file, we have these two links here. We can just change those URLs to /register and /login. So once you change your links, when you click them, you should get 404 errors. What do we need to do to fix those 404 errors? Yeah, our index.js, we need a get handler for each path. So when the user clicks register, it loads our new register view. When they click login, it loads the login view. So inside of my index controller. We're in the root. So when somebody clicks that register link, we want to render the register form. And login will be exactly the same. We'll just replace register with login. So that should get our 404 errors to disappear. So now I can go to register. Or login. I've added a HTML5 regular expression as well to the pattern, so it will enforce strong passwords. Minimum of 8 characters with at least 1 digit, 1 uppercase, and 1 lowercase. So if I put in ABC, for example, the regular expression will tell me I haven't followed the password format. And NVS, you did suggest we ask for an email. I've called the field username because that's what Passport expects. But in our form, we're validating that it is, we do get an email format. So Passport was a bit of work to set up, but actually writing the methods to sign up new users or validate logins, Passport makes really easy. Rather than us having to write much code, we basically just hand off the credentials to Passport and it does all the work for us. So doing things like checking for duplicate users, hashing passwords, all that stuff Passport will automatically do. We don't have to do any of that code. So the next thing we want to do here is write a post method for register so we can actually try to create a new user in MongoDB. Notice also, remember, we don't even have a collection. There is no users collection in MongoDB. Doesn't care. When we try to sign somebody up, if that collection doesn't exist, we have a model called users that's being used for local user management. So Passport will just create the collection for us and insert the first user. So I'll just connect here to my database. We'll have a quick look at what's here. So in global food, I only have countries and foods. There is no place to store users right now. It doesn't matter. Passport can do that for us. So now we need our post method. We want to use Passport to create a user. So when we get a post request here, so we're going to need, because we're in our index controller, this is handled through our user model. So we're going to need to reference the user model at the top of this controller. We want to create a new user. we added this reference earlier to fill our dropdown. So I'll call it capital W user. We need this reference. Capital W as in capital U. Coffee hasn't kicked in yet, quite clearly. So now we can use this user object to try and create a new user. And we're using all the methods in Passport local Mongoose. So it has a register method we can call again. We didn't have to write our own register method. We're using Passport local Mongoose's register method. So we're going to create a new user. We're going to pass in the username from our form. Now you're going to notice we actually are going to send in the password separately. Why would we send in the username and password separately? Why wouldn't we pass them both in together? Are they going to get treated the same way by Passport? Lewis, you're shaking your head. Why not? Right, because that password value, that's a separate parameter so that Passport knows to hash that value. We're going to send password separately. Passport can hash it. And when we do this, we'll get back one of two things. So our last parameter is our callback function. I guess we'll just do this. So if for some reason the user doesn't work, we're going to get an error back. We'll reload the register page, and we'll also send back this error so we can maybe display it to the user. Otherwise, we're going to use Passport to automatically log the new user in. So we'll use the request object, and Passport has a built-in login method. So log the new user in. And then let's redirect to the main food page if they're successful. So in this case, reload register page and pass error details to it for display. So we're not creating our own register method or login method. We're leveraging the methods that are in that Passport local Mongoose package we've installed. So it will handle things like hashing. Sure. We just need a reference to the user. So line 6 is new. Because all this happens through that user model that extends passport local Mongoose. So again, this is this reference and this plugin. Again, that's what gives it access to the register and login methods. They're inside of this package that our user class extends. So we can give this a try. So if registering works, we should get taken to the food page, the main food index page. If it fails, we should get our register form reloading. So I'll go to register. I have to put in a strong password. It's going to be a bit slow because we don't have a user collection. So Passport actually has to generate the collection first. It also may be slow because I may have broken it. There's that possibility too. Okay. No password was given. So that didn't quite work. So let's see where we went wrong. Stop. So my users collection probably hasn't been created yet. So we'll go back to register. Let's see. We have input name equals password. So that is the right input name. I see why. It's a bracket problem. This closing bracket here, I've got curly bracket, round bracket, round bracket. All of this code has to happen inside. So this one bracket I need down right down here. That's why. So I had 2 round brackets here, and I've moved the second round bracket from line 56 down to line 65. So I'll save that change. So I don't think it's created the user collection yet. It still just says 2 collections. So I'll resend my form. And maybe I'll also log it because I think we are getting an error. That's okay. Try again. Okay. So it's using our validation and saying password is I think it's another bracket problem. So it's saying we don't have a password when obviously we do. You know what? I'm going to go back to my user model. The issue may be here. I think rather than us specifying these things, we're just supposed to let Passport take care of it. So all we'll do is set these up as I'm going to take out the validation. So we'll simplify our user model. I think I tried putting in that validation break Passport. Passport will check these things on its own. So all I'm going to do is set those up as strings. And we'll try again. Okay, well, at least that solved that issue. Passport.initialize middleware not in use. So this is something in our app.js we'll have to look at. So I think this actually did create the user. It's now failing when the users, we're trying to log the user in. Let's see, if I go back and look here. So it did create a users collection. So it actually failed on logging me in. My sign up did work here. So now I have a new users collection with one document. So here's what we get. I know it's difficult to see. So here's what we got. Sorry? Well, it's going to be unique for every user. It's not going to be one salt value. So if I create another user, every user will get its own. So, and there's the password. So we don't define. So all of this is taken care of for us. Now I have to figure out why I'm not logged in. Oh, I am able to register. So there's something wrong. Still, we'll need to fix here. So it did create a new user. When we tried register, it populated my new user. But failed on us logging the user in. So something in our app.js isn't quite configured properly. Okay. What we'll do, it's 10:02. We'll take a pause here. I'll take a minute, look at it, and I'll also upload what we've done so far. We'll need to make one small change to fix that.